You guys ready? What's going on, everybody? It's Josh, aka the Moses Muscle, coming here with your boy cousin Creamy in the
How
building,
you doing?
and also introducing first guest on the podcast, Matt Norman, IFBB Pro, my dog, my guy. You want to introduce yourself a little bit real quick before me and Colin get into these?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Matt Norman, like you said, Josh, IFB Pro in Classic Physique, turned pro in 2023 at Junior Nationals, won my class there. Live out here on Long Island with Josh and just living the dream, milling and dealing.
Oh yeah. So Matt is also a coach. If you guys are interested in coaching, oh, let's get into this now before I rush everybody off. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that influencer shit. Let's do that now before I run out of here and cut off our topics that everyone complained about. But yeah, Matt's got coaching. I think you have your link in your bio. Yeah, so check out his Instagram. It'll be in the description. We have my website. We have Colin. Just DM him for coaching. Whoever you like, baby. It don't matter. We all gonna get you results at the end of the day. So do you how you want to do it. Now, Colin and I wanted to start something new. Matt's not really a big football guy, but we're gonna start with week three picks. This is being recorded before week two football, so things are subject to change. Obviously, if people get hurt. Aaron Rodgers stay healthy. So, with that said, we're going to go through week one pick or week three picks. So, Jets, Pats, Jets. It's not a question.
Sadly, Jets, but
Browns, Giants, going Browns.
Browns.
Eagles, Saints, Eagles.
Yeah,
Texans, Vikings, Texans. If you guys don't know, Colin and I are the same person, just two different colors. A lot of these are going to be the same thing. So, Texans, Vikings. I'm going Texans.
yeah, Texans.
Broncos, Bucks. I'm going Bucks.
Mm,
This is one I thought we'd be different on.
I'd go Broncos on that.
Cool. We'll talk about that later. Pack Titans, even with Jordan Love out, I'm going Packers.
So I'll go Titans on that one.
They don't have a running back. Tony
I don't give
Pollard
a
can't do it.
fuck.
Bears, Colts. I'm going Colts, and I'm going Colts for Justin Randall. I'm not going Colts for any other reason because I am a Caleb Williams fan. But
I gotta support the mother. Going Bears.
hey, Anthony Richardson's he's he's something special. Um, Colts, Steelers. I'm going Steelers.
Steelers. Yep.
I don't think Harbaugh is going to be able to go full speed against that Steeler defense. Finns, Hawks. I'm going Hawks.
Hawks.
Panthers, Raiders. I'm going Antonio Pierce. I'm going Raiders.
Yep.
Niners, Rams. It's not really a question. I'm going Niners.
Yeah, that's not no question that.
Lions, Cards. I'm going Lions.
Uh-huh.
Ravens, Cowboys. Unfortunately, Dak, 60 mil. You ain't getting it done. Ravens all day. All right. Falcons, Chiefs. Yeah, Chiefs. I don't even need to hear your answer on that one. Jags, Bills. I'm going Jags.
I'm gonna go Bills on that.
Okay. Skins, Bengals. We're gonna pay for Zoom or Google Meet starting like next week, so we could actually go in depth with these a little bit. Skins, Bengals. I can't call them that anymore. Sorry. Commanders, Bengals. I'm going Bengals either way, even though I think Joe Burrow sucks in the first 4 weeks of the year.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what the fuck?
Yeah, he sucks in the first 4 weeks of the year, but whatever. All right, cool. Done. Now we'll have those posted later, and one of us is going to have a consequence for losing more, which is going to be Colin.
Fuck.
So, whatever,
Christ.
we're gonna turn around and put him on the inversion table for a couple days straight. So he has to be Class B. Now, let's get the post show. This will be a good topic because Colin and I are both 9 weeks yesterday.
About yeah, like 9 weeks yesterday.
9 weeks post show. Matt, what are you, a year and a half post show at this
Yeah.
point?
I'm like 70 weeks post show.
But the good thing is Matt is going through the post show period with his wife. So we get that perspective, and he's got a bunch of clients who are post show now. So there's obviously several different approaches to a post show period. Now, I'm just going to go with like three that I know off the top of my head because when I was coming out of my post show, I was also leaving my coach. So there's a slow approach, slowly increase food, low gear, um, just kind of trying to stay as lean as possible and not letting body weight really fluctuate for the first couple of weeks. That's one approach. Another one would be blast gear out of the gate, try and get a anabolic rebound, whatever. And then three would be increase food relatively high, come off of drugs as much as possible, and grow that way. We probably all three going to be on the same approach idea wise because Matt, I already know where you stand. Me and Colin have talked about this, but I think there's merit to all three,
Yeah.
and I think that's more so where we can go into this is like what approach works best for you. So for me personally, I did the first 2 weeks. I didn't. I actually was lighter than I was on stage after the first 2 weeks. And I think that that has a very good approach to somebody who has a body fat set point that is relatively higher than what they got to when it comes to dieting. So let's say your body fat set point, you sitting around, walking around, feeling comfortable is around 12%. You got down to about, 3, 4% for your show. And you have a tendency to get a little thicker in the off season. I would say that spending more time at a roundabout stage leanness with lower drugs is going to be beneficial for that person. So you guys can absolutely hop in and we'll talk about the first approach first and then we'll go into the next ones.
I agree with you 100%, especially like you have to take into consideration the athlete
Yeah.
first off, because if there's somebody like you said that just tends to get fluffy a little bit easy, like taking a slow approach is definitely what you're gonna have to do, right? But if you have somebody who tends to have a really fast metabolism, maybe you didn't even have to push them that hard into the show, you could blast food pretty quickly, right? So like one of the guys that I had do Atlantic States, which was in June, first weekend in June, so like 3.5 months ago. Dude, like I had him for a full year off season before we even started prep. So I kept him lean in the off season. Food was through the fucking roof. Started prep. The most I ever got him to was like 50 minutes of cardio, and that was for like 2 weeks, literally. This dude was on like a half hour cardio, 2 refeeds a week at like 700 carbs. Like, dude's food was super high. Him, like, I was able to push his food pretty aggressively right out of his show, but I also reversed him for the last like 3 weeks going into the show. So his food was already pretty high. So like somebody like that, I kind of still took a conservative approach relative to probably what other coaches would do, but like TRT and food freaking high, right? But it was slow respect to how much he was already eating. So yeah, I agree with everything you said, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely piggyback off that. Just for the, it's really situational, I feel. It's really just per the athlete. I mean, more times than not, you're really just gonna have to see. I mean, even besides like the physical attributes of it, of if the metabolism's high, etc., person to person. But I mean, also mentally on the side of it. So if it's someone who's like, they're in the shit, digging hard, super food focused. I mean, you're not gonna want to have them do the show, post show. You give them like, for instance, let's say like an extra 300 calories. For someone like that, you're gonna want to jump them up. At least in my perspective, you're gonna want to bring them up to at least blunt the appetite as much to bring them up to maintenance calories. Yeah, you're gonna put on more body fat quicker, but it's also something where you're not gonna have that binge approach post show where they're eating, let's say they're up 300 calories from like peak week calories, and then they're just going and then getting super food focused, can't sleep, and then they wander into the kitchen when it comes like 12 o'clock, and then before you know it, next check-in, they're like 14 pounds up in 2 weeks. You're like, what the fuck happened? And, it's someone who just struggles with that food side. And I mean, the reason I say this is because that's something that I personally have to do because when it comes to like a post show, because even for me, it wasn't something like my first coach, we always did like we got me to fucking bikini calories. I mean, dude, I was eating nothing. Thankfully, my coach now, beautiful Jack Eagles, he was able, I mean, we were able to do massive amounts of work, and I was doing like my lowest my calories got was like 2,400. Yeah, I mean, for my size, it's a lot of fucking food. So I was not nearly as bad, but for someone in that nature, you're eating such low calories, restrictive diet, and even when it comes to like not rookie, but newer competitors, first year, second year, where they're on this restrictive diet, they just get to the point where like I just want to eat fucking everything, and then they're hoarding shit and then, they're eating excess food. They're saying they're doing all their stuff. They stop doing their cardio, all that kinds of stuff.
Dude, if you're like a first time or early competitor and you're buying snacks like 3 weeks out from your show, like just fucking stop. You're like
Yeah.
you're setting yourself up for disaster.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
I just feel like a lot of the times whenever like besides like the eating portion, they think they work so hard and again, not just first timers. This could be people doing their fourth, fifth prep. They busted their ass all prep and then all of a sudden, all that movement you were doing for 15 to 18 weeks, you just start rotting. And then, you're eating only 2,000 calories, but you're gaining substantial amounts of weight because you went from say 50 minutes of cardio, 12,000 steps a day. Now you're doing no cardio with like 6,000 steps a day. It's like you just destroyed all this expenditure and you're still gaining a substantial amount of weight because you just took yourself from hyper moving to nothing in the matter of a week.
Mhm. 100%. I firmly believe that as the least experienced competitor in this chat,
Fuck.
by a long shot, there's so many there's so many miscues to the idea of post show, right? And everyone always talks about like this is the most anabolic period of time. This is where you're going to grow the most. And depending on who you follow, who you listen to, who your coaching was, or who your coach was, you're going to believe a couple things, and they're normally very dogmatic. There is no in between. You're in a higher propensity to gain fat. You're at a higher propensity to gain muscle. It's one of the two, and nobody talks about how you can kind of do both in a healthy manner. I would say Colin and I both have put on a probably decent chunk of fat since the show,
Yeah.
and also have put on a decent chunk of muscle since the show. Now, whether that's, protocols or whatever, doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, it's how diligent are you, we'll say 6 of the 7 days in that week post show that are going to make the biggest difference. And I'm saying 6 of the 7 because let's be real, most coaches are going to give some version of a hypocaloric diet immediately post show, not something that's going to get you to start gaining weight at a relatively fast pace, but a little bit below that so that you can go out and have the cheat meal, repair some relationships, do things of that nature. Maybe not be quite as strict, have a little sugar-free maple syrup on the side or whatever your fancy is. Something along those lines. And that's why I love that approach of taking it slow, staying relatively lean, staying within about 3 to 5% of your pre-peak week diet, pre-peak week diet weight. So I don't know about you guys in your last peak week, but like after peak week with my coach at the time, my calories were lower than my peak week calories the week after and the week after that. Yeah, I know. Nobody ever. Everyone I've told that to, their faces do the same thing that yours just did, Colin.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, also when you're telling me that, you couldn't have anything post show universe, which I can kind of get on the back of that. I'm not gonna lie, because people always go
Matt,
fucking
I think you're
batshit crazy
muted.
the night out. What?
I think Matt's muted somehow.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, there we go.
Got you now.
Oh, I said fuck that. I'm eating.
I mean, I can kind of get on the back of it just for the sake of, you want to hydrate a lot of your ghrelin responses due to the fact that you're just so fucking dehydrated. And then you just shove a boatload of food, shove a boatload of water, and then you feel like dog shit. I personally would like to just wake up and have breakfast the next day, which I did this year, thank God. But oh, it was brutal. I've seen some absolutely catastrophic nights of post show.
Uh, Matt, I think I talked to you after Garden States. I think I called you after, or I texted you after Garden States, and I was like, "Yeah, I haven't eaten anything." And you were like, "Why?" And then after Universe, I remember everyone was like, "Oh, you gonna go out and eat?" And my mom was like messing with Dom Carter, literally messing with him, um, just like fucking around. And one of my clients was there, my mom was there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go out to this restaurant." I was like, "All right, I'll see you later. I'm gonna go and have some cream of rice and whey protein." And I went back to my room, and I literally planned on not doing an off-plan meal or anything. The only reason I did was because I was told I was allowed to have one meal and then back on plan for the next 4 weeks.
And that's you were still with
Thou
yeah.
who shall not be named.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. No, I mean I'm a firm believer, like if somebody put in the work, like let them have that night. Not even like so much for the food, but just to like sit down and decompress with the people that you love, you know, because like the people that come are like really good friends. Because and family, of course, because at the end of the day, like somebody, unless they compete themselves, is not going to go to or loves lifting and bodybuilding. Nobody's going to go to a bodybuilding show if somebody they don't know isn't there. You know what I mean? So like they got to be a good friend if they're going to come out. And nobody's like that close to the venue for like Atlantic States or Universe, right? Like it's not that close to Long Island where we're from. Um, so like if anything, like go out just to like you said earlier, kind of repair some of the relationships, decompress a little bit. But the caveat is like Colin, to your point, if you have a client that you know has like a binging problem, you have to give them guidelines. Like
Yeah,
you know, you have your entree and that's it. Like you're not having an appetizer, entree, three beers, and then dessert, and then the
yeah.
leftovers when you get home. Like, you got to kind of put some guardrails around.
100%. I think we covered that one pretty well. Now we can go into one of the more fun ones. Um, Keeping food relatively around about the same and filling the milligrams, putting the grams in,
God.
the effort, the time, the gear. Um, so I mean, I understand. I'm not saying I've ever done this. I never have. We all know my one show is the one show I've done. Um, but there's got to be a merit to it too. As we just said, you are more anabolic. You are more sensitive to everything that's going into your body. So the total, and we're not going to get into this milligram as a milligram conversation because that's a whole ranting point that I could do a whole hour on. But to turn around and say, hey, I want to push myself, I want to push your health is in the toilet already. So for the next 6 weeks, directly post show, pushing it a little bit further, knowing that you have a health phase coming up or, you're taking your time off of gear. I want to hear your guys' opinion because I have a very biased opinion on this. And I'll just flat out put my opinion out there. It's not a smart move. And it's not a smart move because, as I already said, your health is already in the toilet. Why keep pushing it further? So
Yeah,
I'll let you
I
guys
agree.
go.
So generally, like across the board, I 100% agree. Like it's definitely not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be a successful bodybuilder with years, right? Like if you could get away with staying as healthy as possible and taking, lowest effective dosages of things, but still making significant improvements, which if all your variables are on point, your training, your nutrition, your sleep, your supplementation, if all those things are on point, like you're gonna make significant gains, even with like lowest effective dose, right? So that's more important than getting big quick, right? Because you're gonna be out of the game sooner. Now, when I think about like would I ever do this myself? Like number one, I've never done it. But I would definitely try it, right? So I look back to my last prep. I only prepped for 14 weeks for junior nationals, which I was going to do universe, which was going to be a full 16, but we pulled it off because I was ready early. And I pushed gear harder than I ever have for a prep during that prep. Obviously, it was my first national show. And I got my blood work done right after the show. Like we just went on TRT and like 2 units of growth, right? TRT, 2 units of growth. Got my blood work 6 weeks after the show. Like I shit you not, guys, it was the best blood work I've ever had in my life. And I think that's because I was only on a 14-week prep. And mind you, I take all my health subs, like I don't fuck around with any of that bullshit. So, like in retrospect, when I think about that, like I probably would have benefited in upping the compounds or switching to more like, Anadrol, NPP type compounds as opposed to running like Tren. Well, I would not continue to fucking run Tren in a reverse, you know what I mean? But I think if I rebounded with gear, I think I would have made gains that wouldn't have necessarily cost the trade off of the health since I was already healthy coming out of the show. You know what I mean?
Now, are you
So
saying
like
after
again, to your
6
point,
weeks?
99% of the time, like the answer is no, definitely not. It's not intelligent. But like the more I do this, the more I think about self-coaching, and like I would totally do that to myself. Yeah,
Now, are you saying that after the 6 weeks when you got the blood work back, or are you saying directly post show you would have just switched some
I would have.
compounds out?
Yeah. So let's say hypothetically, like when I do New York next year, which I'm going to do more than just New York. Let's just say hypothetically, I did a 14-week prep, which I'm doing the 20. So again, this is all hypothetical. Um, and that was my only show for the year. I would 100% run PEDs out of my show in the rebound, 100%, because I've already proved to myself that I was healthy after a 14-week prep of pushing compounds in a previous prep. And again, this is something I would only do for myself. I probably would never do this with another client unless we had the same exact outcome. They did a super short prep. We're super healthy, right? Maybe I'll push it for 4 weeks. You know what I mean?
And if they were comfortable with doing that too, obviously.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I'm not going to shove a needle in my client's arm or anything like that.
that's something we were talking about last week, and I cut us off. But if a coach tells you that they need you to do something and you're like, no, I don't really want to do that, and they can't provide an exact reason as to why they're doing this, or they get short with you, or there's some sort of a
It's the
animosity
fucking
towards you, get the fuck out. Just leave. Leave
yeah.
that coach.
It's
So,
just the whole like, oh yeah, like do this because I said so, not for any set of reason. It's like, all right, well, you're kind of a prick about it, but I mean, I'm kind of with you on this, Josh. I personally would just kind of drop you down TRT dose and ride it out from there. I mean, your body's so sensitive as it is, where again, you re-implement a good baseline of carbs, protein, all that. I mean, again, 10, 15 pounds of tissue growth out of a fucking prep, not gonna happen more but you could see substantial gains, but even to the point of what Matt said, if your health markers are in check and it's something where you're comfortable about doing and you want to push out of a show, I mean, there's times where, you hold like a Mastron or something in place where post show you want to keep it everything tight, but also kind of get that effect post show, but not necessarily like pushing out of the gate. Because I mean, even for myself, like I think we held Mastron in for like hypothetically, if I did do that, we held it in for like 4 weeks post show, just kind of help things stay tidy. And then we kind of dropped everything off. But I mean, as long as your health markers are in check and you're comfortable with it, I definitely see the benefits you can get from it. But again, it's not something we're going to force a client to do so. More so, I wouldn't call it self-experimentation, but self-willing to go and push yourself out of a show, being that, insulin sensitive, being that just sensitive in general to have that anabolic period after. But not like you said, 99% of the time, it's just, drop you down to a TRT dose, cruise out, and then make sure everything's in check with your health.
Yeah,
now,
I think we would all agree that's pretty much our recommendation for everybody. I
Yeah.
don't want some like 20-year-old kid to listen to this. He's doing his first show. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna blast trend for 6 weeks after my show.
get your blood work done. Turn around and talk to somebody who knows more than you, and don't just go to the biggest guy in the gym who can't formulate a sentence. That's
Yeah,
our
that's
disclaimer.
also key, right? Like even if you plan to use drugs post show, like go get your blood work done anyway.
Yeah.
Fuck it. It's not it's so easy to get these days.
To- which is crazy you're saying that we're from New York, but whatever. We'll get into that after the podcast at some point because blood work here is horrible. Um,
Obviously, yeah, you're right.
yeah, it's so hard to get blood work done here,
What?
Colin. Yeah, so hard. You
Why?
have to
I
find
lived in
I
I
manufacturers.
have another a place for you. I can you go through Quest. It's the same thing as what Merrick was. It's just with Titan now.
Awesome. All right. And then we'll get into the last one because I know time is probably going to start running out on us soon. So the last one would be just ripping food. So let's say that you were on a baseline of, Colin, I don't know how you eat 2,400 calories in prep. We'll talk about that again later. But I was eating like 1,800 on my rest days. And
was doing cardio.
maybe I was gonna say maybe because I didn't do cardio.
Yeah, exactly. I
I
mean, fuck, dude.
You didn't do cardio for your prep?
No, I had 15,000 steps at the most, but also you saw what the other things are at, and that's why. So yeah. So let's say that you were at a baseline of, training day, rest day, high day, mid, moderate day, low day, whatever, however you ran your diet, but the average was about 2,000 calories. And, right after the show, bump you right up to 3K. I think that's also, obviously, all of these are case dependent, but realistically, I don't think you're going to turn around and lose all of this sensitivity, all this tissue right out of the gate, or not tissue, but put on all this body fat right out of the gate. But I think it's case dependent on if you cannot turn around and tolerate that from a blood glucose perspective, from an insulin sensitivity perspective. If you start getting bad pumps or no pumps in the gym, you're retaining water, you got sock lines all the time, things like that, like the little questionable biomarker things that you're like, I don't know, then maybe you went too far. But I think in general, the good standing would say, hey, let's increase calories pretty high out of the gate, see what you can tolerate, and then back it down if we need to from there.
Yeah.
So that would be probably my favorite approach. My approach with most of the guys that because I don't have any competitors right now simply because I'm stewing. I'm in the slow cooker with these guys. We're doing Long Island's in 25, not even 24. So a lot of these guys are getting ready now to just mentally be there. But if you're in a mini cut and your calories come down, I'm aggressive with mini cuts. I'll bring your calories down to like 2,200 for 4,800 on week one. I don't care. We're trying to get in and out. But when it's time to reverse out of that, we're going up to like 32, 3,300 calories right off the gate because you are sensitive enough to actually utilize that food. And I want to see, all right, cool. Are we just going to get a fullness response to this? Are we going to actually accumulate some tissue out of this in the first upcoming weeks and visibly see it? Or is this just going to be like hey, you got fat pretty quick. We're going to have to pull this back. So, your guys' opinion on it, that's easily my favorite approach. And I think that might be my favorite approach just because it's what kind of happened to me after 2 weeks of staying diligent and being on my peak week diet. Hired the new coach, and next thing I know, I went from like 22 to 2,300 calories average per day to about 4,200 like that. And as you both have seen, we put on a pretty significant amount of weight that's not just straight up fat. So, your guys' opinion on it, obviously, anecdotally, I see it myself, and that's what I like. So, with you guys, what have you seen? What do you like to do? What do you have your guys do? What do you actually coach people to do?
So I would first say with you, I think given your situation, like with the you know, fake
Yeah,
supplements, that adds another variable for you, right? So, and I think what you did is good. I think that's a really good approach. I still generally tend to go towards more so the first category we called it with the slower increase in calories. And I don't even necessarily base it off of like the person's peak week, more so like what was leading up to that, because everybody's peak is going to be completely different depending on do I front load them, do I back load them, how much do I actually have to feed this person to get them full, right? Like everybody's going to be completely different from that perspective. But I've had a lot of success doing that, not only with other clients, but myself. So I just like that strategy. But that being said, if I were to go with the third category with bumping the food up quite significantly, it absolutely would be the approach that you're taking, where I would bump it, see how that impacts the athlete from, like you said, all those biomarker perspectives. And of course, how much body fat are they putting on week over week when they're checking in? And additionally, if I'm just pulling somebody out of a mini cut, I would absolutely take that approach because if you're doing like an 8 week mini cut, you're having a significant amount less metabolic and thyroid downregulation because you're not going through a whole prep that's, 18, 20 weeks. Then you're also not getting to a point of, 5% body fat, right? When you're doing a mini cut, right?
right.
Um, so yeah, no, that's I agree with what you said on how to handle that approach. So yeah.
Yeah, I personally think I mean, again, that's personally how I did it. But again, just for me personally, it just worked the best. But again, you kind of, if you're gonna have that much food, you kind of have to sacrifice the whole. I mean, sometimes I would say you have to sacrifice some off plan meals because again, if you're jumping, 1,000, 1,200 calories right out the gate, again, if you're doing that plus like an off plan or two meals a week, then all of a sudden, your feet are getting all swollen, your ankles are getting swollen mid-meal, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? You're waking up super watery. Again, you have to keep an eye on it personally. You have to be very self-aware because again, yes, your coach is going to keep an eye on you week by week because if he's not, then I'm sorry, what the fuck is he doing? But honestly, if you personally know like, all right, my feet are swelling, you have electrolyte imbalances like crazy, you're eating excess amounts of carbs, excess amounts of fat, whatever the case may be. But even for the sake of, you look in the gym, you're like, damn, I look like shit. It's like post show, you're supposed to have like this freaky look, and then all of a sudden you're just like a bag of water. You're like, what the fuck is going on? So it's definitely case dependent. Again, you got to see how much food they can handle week by week, but also as the client, you have to be very mindful that, you know, okay, if your coach doesn't give you an off plan meal, oh, it's not, oh, fuck him for doing that. It's like, no, you're eating excess amounts of food than you probably should be. So you're kind of sacrificing one end to get the other. So it's like either eat less and then maybe have an off-plan meal, or you're going to get more food and then for the first month or so, you're probably not going to have an off-plan meal. And if you do have an off-plan meal, it's going to show and you're going to
Yeah.
feel it and you're going to feel like dog shit about it.
And that's why the first approach is probably the most beneficial for 90% of people. And I think this approach is definitely a special case, like Matt was saying, my special case of turning around and being in a precarious situation, call it. I was in a limbo of coaches, I was in a limbo of supplements, I was in a limbo of there's a lot of things kind of going on that when the food came in, the body just adjusted and it was just ready to go.
Mhm.
Um, and also, I think it comes down to the person. Like something we talked about in the fat loss episode is what is going to get somebody the most amount of fat loss is sticking to it. If you adhere to the diet by not going off plan, not adding in the little extra, dark chocolate here or there, adding in the Reese's peanut butter cup every once in a while, that is going to turn around and pay dividends in this last approach of just increasing food straight off the gate, as opposed to, being a little bit slower. And as we've said multiple times, it's about knowing the person that you're working with. It's about knowing, even if you're self-coaching, if it's about knowing yourself, like if you're someone who, maybe you smoke a little doobie before you go to bed and then you're raiding the cabinets, you're gonna take that slower approach. 100%. If you're one of those people who you eat exactly on the plan, you're weighing everything out, you're making sure that it's perfect, and you don't even add an extra gram of sugar-free ketchup. This is the this approach can work for you very, very well. And also, if you don't have a girlfriend, you don't have a wife, you don't have a husband, whatever your relationship status, we're all good with all the colors of the rainbow here. Be an ally, all that niceties. Don't turn around and say like, hey, if you don't have any of that, yeah, maybe you can follow a more dogmatic approach of just increasing food straight out the gate because you don't have anyone to go to sushi with anyway. And not everyone's like me going to bring a laptop and put some headphones on and just order from an iPad the whole time.
Hey, it's all about the
But
solo dates.
always, always. We went to Tortofino again yesterday.
You're so
Eh,
fat.
I just got two cookies and I didn't finish. One of them sitting on my counter. I got it from my mom. But the idea needs to always be like what works best for the person. And something I want to get into, so Matt, I'm inviting you into a part two, is the increase in food. I'm gonna just put out the whole topic because I was thinking
You,
about it
you
while we
have
were
1 minute
talking.
left on this meeting, by the way. I see
Yeah,
it up there.
don't worry, we turn around and we end fast. So I just let it run out. So the next topic that I would like to talk to both of you guys about would be, and we'll get into the scientific
That minute's running
myofibril
out
versus
quick.
sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and how it's affected by food. So the size of the muscle with fullness or the size of the muscle with just more muscle cells. So we'll get into that. We're calling it a day. Thanks for having you, Matt. Thanks for coming on. Wow, all that things. Nice. Awesome. Bye, guys. Colin, I'll talk to you in a second. Peace.
Jesus Christ.
Thank you, guys.
Matt, it was